Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of Be Real. I'm your host, Vikram Diol, and today I got a really cool guest. I got a guest, Peter O Estevez, that, I always like making these, thinking about their journey as I'm talking and introducing them, because I can't even imagine where he started his life at and where he's sitting at now. For those of you who can actually see where he's at, he's in a beautiful space with artwork and just amazing decoration. It's just such a creative, like I could see myself working in this place and being super creative, but that's not how his life started. His life started being one of 13 children, where his dad was a migrant worker in the US and he lived in Mexico with his mom and his other small NFL starting lineup team. And he came to America at the ripe age of 10, and he was so poor. He says his quote that he shared with me, and I don't want to steal it, but I'm going to. He says, we were so poor, we were so dirt poor, we couldn't even afford a dream. And he went from there to creating many successful businesses, entrepreneur in the energy space, has places here and in Mexico where he bounces back and forth. But he tells me that his life wasn't always easy. And being one of 13, he says it so nonchalantly. He's like, oh yeah, I was one of 13 and it was really hard in Mexico. So then we decided to come to America where it'd be easier. And I'm like, wait, hold on. One of 13, like that's crazy. My mom's one of 7, and that would be nuts to have. And they were living in like a small, 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. My mom was in like a 3-bed, 1-bath house. And she used to tell us stories, and I can't imagine being like that, right? I can't fathom what it was like. And when Peter talks, you're going to see why I really wanted to get him on this show, because he's just a ray of light. So Peter, without me talking too much, his shirt says I'm on the rise, which I love. And Peter, without further ado, my friend, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Vikram, thank you. Thank you so much for having me as your guest. What an honor and privilege to be here today and to share with your audience. And you're right. I said very nonchalant today that I'm one of 13, but it was not that easy to say it many years ago, many moons ago. Growing up in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home with 6 brothers and 6 sisters, a mom and a dad, was not very comfortable living quarters. It was a frame home, less than 900 square feet, in a low to moderate income neighborhood in San Antonio, Texas. And that's where my father brought us to. He brought us there for the pursuit of the American dream. Little did we know very young that transitioning from your culture, from knowing your primary language, to trying to acculturate yourself to a different community, to a different language, to a different social economic level, to being looked like a strange family. 13 children living in a 2-bedroom home in a neighborhood where the average household was maybe 2 to 2.5 children. That was an odyssey in itself, and we also migrated in a time where there was a lot of discrimination in our communities. We think that there's discrimination now. There was a lot of discrimination against Mexican mine workers, which we were, so we were called a lot of slangs, from wetbacks to mojados to many other things. But, I know that when my parents made the decision to bring us to the United States, they were in pursuit of the American dream. The American dream that very quickly became the American nightmare. In the journey in the pursuit for my father to take care of his children, to get us through school, to do all of that, one of our brothers was murdered, stabbed 37 times in the heart. There was a lot of dysfunction about the older siblings trying to adjust to the language barrier, to be adaptable in school. Wow. It was a very, very, very difficult time, and my father, doing the best that he could as a provider, our family was a mine working family. We still left once a year, twice a year, picking apples and picking oranges, whether it was oranges in Florida or apples in Illinois. It was not an easy life. But what's very interesting?
Tell me.
I always knew that that's where I came from, but that was not where I belong.
That's right, baby.
And I didn't know how I was going to escape that poverty, that despair, that fact that I could not, that we were so poor that I could not afford a dream. But I was dreaming, baby. I was passionate about life, and I knew that there was something else beyond the state that we were in. You know, I'm going to tell you that one thing that we learn, or one learns when you're an immigrant, when you are poor, you become very resourceful because you don't have any resources. So you become creative, you become a chameleon, you become adaptable. And that gave me the ability to be able to, at a very young age, pursue different types of odd jobs, anywhere from mowing lawns to paper route to painting houses to whatever it was. But I wanted something better. I wanted to get out of poverty. I did not know how I was going to do it, but I knew that I did not belong where I was.
So, you know, Tony Robbins says we don't have a lack of resources, we have a lack of resourcefulness. And that's what you say as well. But when did you, like, at what age, right? Because I mean, you give us a very short synopsis and a very positive outlook, but what age did you say Peter is not going to live this lifestyle?
Well, you know, there was several periods. You know, every day, every phase of our lives requires a different us. You know,
Right.
there's no elevator to success.
No.
You know, there's no fast train. There's no bullet train to change and transformation.
There's not even stairs to success. It's just a rocky mountain that nobody's ever been on, it feels like sometimes, right?
Absolutely. It's a climbing of the mountain, and you fall down and you get back up and you get bruised up and you get back up again. The thing to success is to never, ever, ever, ever give up. To always remember that we are on the rise, no matter how low we are. But, you know, I knew between the ages of 15 and 16 and 17, I remember, you know, we never wore jeans because my parents couldn't afford to buy us jeans. They were also a traditional Catholic family. But, you know, it was like my senior year and my buddies wanted to go to a Rolling Stones concert in Dallas, but they will not allow me to go with them unless I would wear jeans and a t-shirt. Okay, because I would wear khaki pants and hand-me-down shirts from my other siblings. You know, that's what we had. That's what we could afford to wear. But my buddies, you know, we're at that age where we become a little bit more pretentious, where there's social pressure, where there's, you know, you got to look different. You want to look different. So I bought my very first pair of jeans at Kmart when I was 17 years old, in a t-shirt. It was a Rolling Stones t-shirt to go to a Rolling Stones concert. That was the very first time I wore jeans. Okay. And that was from me working as a stocker at a grocery store. Okay. And I knew that I was different, because even my friends that they liked me, they didn't want to take me to a concert unless I changed, unless I wore different clothes, and that was kind of a turning point for me, that I was different, you know, that I needed to do something to be accepted. Okay.
So when you say when you say at 17 you realize you were different, does that mean it finally hit you that you were different than the other kids' families, or you're different, like you weren't going to be the same person that you grew up as? What do you mean by different?
Both. It hit me how poor we were. Okay. And it also hit me that I needed to make some really, really, really changes in order to get out of that poverty, because my parents were never going to be able to afford to get me out of that poverty. I needed to take my life into my own matters. I needed to take action, you know, and I began emulating people. We began looking at people, how they dress, how they walk, how they talk. You know, back then it was more of a traditional way of up the ladder, right? You go and get the right job at the right office, you put in your time, you know, you retire and you get, you know, you get a nice little pension every year, you know. So that was kind of like the road that I started going up to, you know. So I wanted to make sure that I got employed right out of high school at one of the most prominent companies in my city, which was USAA. So I took that entry-level job and I wanted to escalate, but I learned very quickly that a lot of the entry-level positions were very monotonous and they were almost robotic, and there was no opportunities for growth and advancement, that it was going to take me 30 years in order to accomplish what I wanted to do. And I knew that I was going down the same path, just a little bit higher level than my father, and that's not what I wanted for myself. Okay. So I started at the very senior year in high school. My buddy and I started in the restaurant business. We opened up a restaurant together as partners, and we started our first Mexican restaurant called Café Nuevo Laredo. And that was kind of like the kickstart to entrepreneurship. Wow. You know, I could get cash every day. You know, I was able to get up in the morning, be productive, be conscious, you know, manage people, learn the business, learn entrepreneurship. And then I bought my second restaurant. I opened up a second restaurant with a different partner. And then things went to hell. You know, I hit that age between, you know, 21, 22 years old, where I was making a little bit of money. Okay. Yep. But all my demons were chasing me. Okay. Yep. I couldn't run fast enough. You know, the drinking got out of control. The womanizing got out of control. The spending got out of control. So very quickly, I lost my partnerships in the restaurant business.
Wow.
And not knowing what to do and not having very many skills, because unfortunately, even today, the education system does not prepare us for the real world. Okay.
Yeah, it prepares you to be a worker in a factory from the 1950s. It doesn't, it's purposely created. This could be a long conversation, but our education system is purposely created to keep us from being creative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no imagination. There's no creativity. There's no positivity. There's no vision for advancement. There's nothing there. Okay. Yeah. And I remember the first day that my life changed because I made one single decision. After going to the one ads and looking for a job and going to the job interview as a regional restaurant manager for a chain of restaurants at the time, and I accepted the job. After walking the kitchen and I saw many of my peers, what I mean my peers, people that look like me, Hispanic men and women in the kitchen, full of grease, dirty, washing dishes, pushing food, running around like crazy, sticky shoes on in the kitchen because of all the grease pounded on the ground.
Yep.
You know, and then I walk out of there. Yes, I just got hired as a regional manager, but I stunk like a kitchen. Okay. Yeah. And I couldn't see myself doing that. So I went back, sat down at a restaurant, started looking at the one ads. This is pre-internet time. Okay. So I started looking at the one ads in the newspaper, and there was an ad for a real estate company that said, make 6 figures in 6 months, have your own hours, have your own schedule.
What year was that, Peter?
This was in the 80s, mid 80s.
When 6 figures meant something.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, in the 80s, 6 figures meant a lot to me that I had not ever made any money. My father never made beyond, I would guess, $10 an hour. I don't know. Right. You know, I mean, I don't know what father made at the time, but he did not make very much money. Yeah. I can tell you that we lived in a combination between crop picking, food stamps, welfare, okay, and my father's jobs, okay, yeah. And whatever other fit, you know, whatever other sources of income came in, and then whatever the siblings that were older that started working were contributing to the household. We were a generic, traditional Hispanic immigrant family, yep. Okay, and we all had to pitch in to keep the lights on. We all had to pitch in to put groceries in the fridge. I mean, it was that type of lifestyle. Yeah. So as you talked about me in the introduction, today where I live is a paradise. Okay, and it's a paradise, and I don't mean that in the sense of being pretentious. You know, anything was better than that. Anything was better than that. And I knew very, very early on. I knew it. I knew I had this imaginary thoughts to myself that I was born from a different family, that I didn't belong there, and somehow magically I was going to escape that. Okay, I didn't know where that magic was going to come from. I didn't realize that I had to create that magic myself at the time, but I knew that magic was going to come. Lo and behold, I go to the job interview. I get hired by the gentleman, Francis P. Moran. He pays for my real estate school. I end up coming to work for him, and lo and behold, there was, I don't know how much you know about the real estate business, but
fair amount.
During that time, they used to give you what is called floor duty, and you get an opportunity to answer the phone and get your clients. Okay, I would sit at the phone and often check the phone to see if it was still working because the phone was not ringing. Okay, this was in the middle of the 80s crisis, real estate crisis, S&L crisis. Everything was boost and bust. Okay, boom and bust, and S&L. Banks were going out of business. Everything was shut down. I was so ignorant. I didn't realize that we were in the middle of a real estate crisis. And here I just got into the real estate business. Okay.
Sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Absolutely. It was bliss in my case. And I will tell you it's bliss because all I remember is every night when I drove home, okay, to my own neighborhood, I used to drive by a real estate company that was in my neighborhood. And every morning and every night that I drove by there, the office was packed with people. There was always cars in the parking lot. There was always people coming in and out. And my buddy, that one that had been my partner in the real estate business, worked there as a sales agent. So what I started doing when I noticed that, I started stopping every morning to find out, to kind of do my informal survey of what was going on.
Right.
And I realized that there was one common denominator. There was Hispanic people coming in and out that only spoke Spanish. Okay. And the real estate company was selling houses like pancakes. Okay. So
they had their niche.
They had their niche. They had found the niche. Okay. So what I did, I went back to my office and I said, what the hell? I'm going to run an ad on the Spanish newspaper and see what happens. And sure enough, the phone started working. The phone started ringing. Okay. And I was having people come into my office on a daily basis. The only problem with that was, Bikram, I'm talking back in the 80s, the average price of a house was $30,000. So you don't make a lot of money when after you do a 3% split with the broker, and most of the properties were listed by somebody else of, 50% of a $300 check is only $150. I had to sell a lot of houses to make any kind of money. But even then, that was much better than what I had been accustomed to. Okay. So I realized very quickly that my marketing was working, that there was a need, there was a demand. So now I wanted to create a system in order for me to be able to, how do I take this? I know there's a market there, but I'm 10, 15 miles away from this community that is underserved and really doesn't want to cross town in order to come here, because they typically get out of work late. They have beat up cars. Their cars are not working well. Many of them even took the bus. So there was a lot of other factors that I had to study. And after doing an informal research, I realized that what I needed to do was to open a real estate company in that community. Okay. So I did what most Mexican families do. I talked to my siblings, and one of my sisters said, I help you find a building, rent a building, do whatever you want to do. Let's see if it make it happen. Lo and behold, we buy a property together. I'm going to open up my office. I go and talk to my broker at the time, and I tell them what I'm going to do. Okay. And he says, well, I understand. He says, but you still need a broker. He says, why don't you and I become partners? I'll become the broker. We have the furnishings. I have the licenses. There's 12, 13 agents here you can take with it. We can take with us. Let's make this happen. Right during that same period of time, and this is where the universe and where we have to be paying attention at a continuous basis, be present and be consistent and be intentional about what we're doing. The gentleman that I used to stop at his office each and every day, okay, to do my informal real estate, he gets shut down by the IRS for tax evasion, and the building becomes available.
Wow.
We already had bought a property, but this was a prime location and people already knew that existed.
Right.
So take over the building, lease out the property that we had bought, okay, put up our signage. None of the agents that were working for us, because most of them were Caucasian, wanted to come with us. So it was my partner, his daughter, myself, and my brother. Okay. But I will tell you this, within a 12-month period, we had 150 agents.
Holy smokes.
Within a 2-year period, we were selling an average of 300 houses a year, okay? By the time I exit the company in 1999, we were selling an average of 1,000 units per year, an average sales of $75 to $100 million in gross sales per year. And we had really gone from rag to riches, okay? We had we instead of becoming brokers, what we end up doing, we end up buying a lot of distressed properties, okay? Because what I discovered during my research was that a lot of the neighborhoods have a tendency of moving north, okay? And they move away from neighborhoods that become 20 to 30 years old. And there's a transition of typically lower economic movement that moves into that area.
Right.
And it's kind of like the ants chasing the people, right?
Yep.
My study told me that, Many of those homeowners didn't want the properties. They wanted to exit as quickly as possible. They were willing to take cash or owner carry. So I developed a system where we made an agreement with many of those owners to take over the properties, to maintain the taxes, to maintain the property, to fix them up, to paint them, to rehab them. And then we would sign a 12-month note. If we didn't pay them a 12-month note, we would deed the property right back to them.
Wow.
We lost the money, and we were able to acquire our first year in using that method, using that system, 175 units.
Well, okay, I'm gonna back this train up because you've said something that I want people to take note of. I want you all to take note. He said 3 times, maybe 4 times, that he created a system. He created a system. I created a system. I created a system. And then he also took the initiative to do the research. You went out and you saw that there was somebody who had what you wanted. And you just set the intention. I'm going to be there. I'm going to look. I'm going to create a system. You did the research. You sat down. You organized. You thought. You planned. You executed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you did. I mean, you don't know my history, but I had a real estate team that did pretty good volume back in Seattle. We didn't do the units you did, but we had really good volume because of our price points. And I exited that a couple of years ago because I went through my own personal journey, midlife crisis, third life crisis, quarter life crisis, however long we live, nobody knows. And it was all about the systems, right? Because success doesn't happen by accident. Success happens because you put a system in place.
Absolutely.
And now you have acquired so just under 200 units in 1 year that other people were literally paying you to take because you didn't have to put a ton of money out. And you got notes. So you were collecting cash flow while somebody else was carrying your mortgage with zero money out of pocket. And this is back before the internet was even a big deal.
Absolutely. And that was a lot of my advantage. The advantage was that the internet was not available. Okay. So there was not the meetings, the communications that we have today. Today, anybody can find out and discover where properties are for sale. Back then, I created a niche in the marketplace that did not exist. People were basically moving. Okay, there was also a lot of division between cultures. There was a language barrier as well. So the Caucasian agent had a property for sale in a now either Hispanic or Black neighborhood. They didn't speak Spanish. They didn't speak language. They couldn't, even if they spoke the same language, they could not understand the same words. Okay. Right. So let me give you an example of what I say by that. If you are an affluent realtor that is used to dealing with a market that pays cash, has mortgage, has financing, is credit worthy, okay? Yep. And then you got somebody that says, hello, how much house? Okay, yep. What do? You hang up on them, okay? Or you tell them whatever you can to get them off the phone as quickly as possible. And I'm not making fun of any culture. I'm making fun of my culture and I'm making it a point.
Well, okay. No, you're just stating, you're not making fun. You're stating facts because I chuckle a little bit because I've actually in my old office that I used to work in, I was an Indian agent. And so I would get calls and they'd be like, how do you talk to those people? We don't even know what they're saying. And I chuckle and I was like, just send them my way, baby.
That was my advantage, being able to identify that I was catering to my culture. I understood their language. I understood what they needed. My parents didn't have any credit. My parents didn't have any money. My parents were the same demographic that they were. I took an advantage of what my culture was. I developed a market in the marketplace that was an incredible niche. And I took advantage of creative financing systems that I created that I didn't even know about. That is why I said sometimes ignorance is a bliss.
Yes.
Okay? I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that what my father done, his father had done, my great-grandfather had done, had not worked for them. And I was not going to repeat that cycle.
Your story became your superpower.
Absolutely.
Your story became... You know, and that's what this is about in life is like people speak up because your story is so powerful, but you sit and try to hide your beginnings instead of embracing what you've been through and what you've overcome.
Absolutely. And you know, there was a while, I'm sure like this happened to you coming from an Indian culture, that I was embarrassed of where I came from.
Absolutely.
I was embarrassed of where I came from.
Yeah, 100.
because there was no dignity, there was no pride, there was nothing. Had been my culture, my parents had been beaten down so bad that they subconsciously beat us down as well. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
somebody had to wake up and raise up. Somebody had to get their pride back. Somebody had to take ownership. Somebody had to come in and dismantle all that social conditioning, all that limited belief, all that I can, and turn those I can into I can do anything I want. And
Yes,
I'm on the rise on a daily basis. Okay?
Yeah, baby.
And that's what I had to do. And I continue to do on a daily basis. And I don't only do it for me, for myself, for my son. I want to do it for my community. I want to do it for my culture. And I want to do it for the public at large, for them to wake up. Because what I realized was that my parents didn't hold me back.
Right.
Their parents didn't hold us back. It was a culture, the social conditioning, the limited beliefs, the many hundreds of years of generational curses that we carry over from one generation into generational.
Yes.
Somebody has to put a stop to it. Somebody has to end it and install a new software in our mindset in order for us to see our potential. Okay?
Peter, are we brothers? Literally, are we brothers? I talk about this all the time. Like I'm writing an email this morning to my mastermind group, and I said, the reason why most people will never make $1 million, even though we all believe that $1 million is the new $100,000 base mark, right? I was looking up research today, and in 1980, $100,000 is now almost $400,000 in today's money. And I think about, man, $400,000 it's not even a lot of money. I'm like, that's like standard to live in a big city and have a decent quality of life. You will never be wealthy on $400,000. And people hear me say that, they're like, you're just pretentious. You like nice cars. And I said, no, you just, if you have a house in LA that's $2 million, it's not 10,000 square feet. It's like 3,500 square feet at max. And it's a nice older home. It's not anything spectacular, but it's a multi-million-dollar home. And then you got the taxes, and you got the kids, and you got the college, right? Even if you're not driving Mercedes and Lexuses and BMWs, which most people, once they make that kind of money, they start driving, you're not going to have any money at the end of the day. Your average household that's making a couple $100,000 is spending 80% of that to keep the household running, because as you move up culturally, you move up socially. And as you move up, you start to join the different clubs. And so I always say to people, $1 million should be the new standard, what $100,000 was 40 years ago.
Absolutely.
But people don't get there. And the reason why is because the mindset is that, yes, I agree, $1 million should be the standard, but they don't believe, because of their limited thinking from their original iOS that's still installed in their brain, that they can do it. Yes, Vikram, everybody should make $1 million, but I can't because of all these different reasons, because of what was installed as a child.
Well, I think a little bit different today, Bikram. What they need to do is change the mindset instead of putting a target on the dollar amount, because I was able to accomplish the dollar amount, okay? But I still carry the same mindset into my success, okay? And what we do when we do that is we sabotage our own successes with our own demons, okay? So
been there many times.
So the alcohol kicked in, the addiction to alcohol kicked in, the womanizing, the fancy cars, the overspending, the lack of management, the marriages, the divorces, the partnerships, the breaking up of the partnerships, okay? Because I had not addressed the broken boy. I took the poor boy into the boardroom. I took the poor boy into the marriage. I took the poor boy into my success, okay? And when you take that poor boy into every area of your life, when you don't heal the boy, the man can never come out.
That's right.
Okay? So I needed to go back and reconstruct myself. I needed, every phase of our lives requires a different us. Okay. But I wanted to operate as a multimillionaire with the mentality of a poor, broken, abused little boy. It does not work.
Doesn't work.
The imposter syndrome kicks in.
Oh my God.
The deficiency kicks in.
Yes.
The lack of kicks in. And we try to compensate that with alcohol, with money, with cars, with toys, with women, with all the things that sabotage our success.
And it only makes you feel worse.
Absolutely. There is no worse hangover than a moral hangover.
Yeah. Okay? Oh, that.
Okay. The moral emotional hangover is one of the worst hangovers a human being can have. Okay. And I know it all too well. I know it all too well, but it took me a long time and a long journey of successes, failures, ups, downs, and in betweens in order for me to realize that if I kept operating with the same system that my parents had adopted in my brain set and what I had collected, okay, for my social conditioning, I was never going to be successful. I would have never met you. I would have never had this conversation with you because I would have been intimidated. I would have been afraid. I would have been out of shape. I would have been no telling if I would have been alive. So what did I need to change about myself in order to be able to accomplish what I have accomplished? Everything. I needed to change everything.
Oh my, Peter, I knew when I met you on Clubhouse, I was like, holy smokes, I need to talk to this man because everything you just said, I have been working so hard to get personally out of, right? The womanizing, I spent time in jail, the sobriety, right? Just so many different things you're talking about. I'm like, oh my God, I am Peter 20 years ago. And
Brecken, let me tell you something. I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. Our stories, they're not unique. They're the story of many. Okay. And there has to come a point in our lives when we share our story in service, where we clean our mess, we make it our message. But don't take your message, okay, and don't take your mess as a message until you clean it up, because you don't do anybody any good, okay? What people want to see is possibility. Right. What people want to see is you hear my story, you see yourself in me, but now you see the possibility, okay? Because you can extract yourself from that, okay? Most of us live in a perpetual, consistent state of survival. Okay? In order for us to be able to thrive and operate from a state of flow, we need to exit that state of survival and we need to enter the present. We can only enter the present by surrendering, but a lot of us mistake surrendering with giving up. Surrender is not giving up, Surrender is giving in. And giving in to discovering the power of who you truly are. Okay, because every single one of us have the potential to achieve anything that we want. Okay, but we are seldom given the opportunity or take the opportunity to do so. Okay, so that's what happens to many of us.
So I love that. Oh my gosh, I have goosebumps from your story, Peter, from your passion, your power, what you've come through and what you've accomplished. And I love the fact that you're openly sharing, because a lot of people get success, they hide behind their success because they don't want to let people know they were a broken boy that was trying to be a man. They don't want to share that they had alcohol or womanizing issues. They don't want to talk about that they were never the perfect human being their entire life. How do you surrender? How do you go into surrender so that you can come out and serve?
You know, typically there has to be a major shift in our lives. And I can tell you the moment that shift took place for me.
Yeah, please. 2008,
ups, downs, happily married, beautiful blonde wife, 2.5 kids, white picket fence, Mercedes, every toy you could have in the driveway, big house in an exclusive community called the Woodlands right outside north of Houston. Okay, living there. I had gotten sober in 2000. I surrendered to sobriety in 2000. Congrats. And I started working a program of recovery. But then I moved from San Antonio to the Woodlands, and I became comfortable. I became comfortable. And what I mean by that was that I didn't continue working my program of recovery. Okay. Oh. What I did was I stopped drinking, I stopped going to meeting, and I stopped working on myself.
Gotcha.
Okay? Recovery, and this is in every instance of the word, recovery is a consistent, persistent, transformation of the mind, soul, body, and spirit. That's what recovery is, okay? And every single one of us that wants to change, evolution, empowerment of our soul, we need to be in that consistent pursuit, okay? But I stopped doing it. I became complacent. I moved to the Woodlands. I had the good-looking wife. I have the kids. I have the car. I have everything, right? I'm in a comfortable state. But since I'm not working on myself, my demons continue to chase me because I have not tamed them, okay? I don't need alcohol to get drunk. I can get drunk on lying, cheating, deceiving, controlling, manipulating, okay, womanizing, whatever, okay? I had not tamed those demons because I had not attended the broken little boy. I have not taught that, I have not converted that boy into a man. So I continue to behave, even though my life was perfect. I had a good wife, have my children, I had a home, I had a business, okay? I continue behaving like a freaking drunk.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you continue to operate with the same mindset, if you are drunk in a drunken state, you can't operate with clarity. Yep. So in 2008, mother dies. We have one of the worst economies worldwide, for that matter, but a heavy real estate crisis in the country. I lose a lot of assets. I find myself again broken. Okay. My wife asked me for a divorce.
Wow.
And my father died 6 months after mother. Okay. And in between that, I am left raising my son as a single father. And my son is only 7 years old. Okay. And what I realized when I see my son that went from a happy, joyous boy to a seclude, hiding in his room, gaining a lot of weight, doing nothing but gaming, it clicked on me for the very first time that my wife that had an addiction issue that was, in my opinion, so fucked up, okay, was smart enough to walk away from our marriage because I was even more fucked up.
Damn.
Okay? And I was perpetuating the same pain, just in a different package, to my son that my parents have perpetuated to me. I was repeating the cycle. I was just doing it at a different economic level. Okay?
Because when you don't heal, you just create generational traumas, no matter what the house looks like.
How it comes out, it does not matter. It still comes out. Okay? You know, so I'm perpetuating the same pain, the same drift, the same social conditioning, the same damage, the same cycle. Everything is coming back over. Okay? Right. And I remember seeing my son in that pain. I remember seeing a healthy, loving, joyous little boy turning into a hermit, fat little kid that didn't want to come out of his room. Okay. And I remember going to the computer, okay, and Googling, how do I become a better person? Okay. And the first thing that popped up was Mind Valley, okay, which is personal development platform by Vishen Likiani, okay, and Christina Likiani. And Christina has been on my podcast. Imagine that, okay? And they popped up, and they have a platform. It's an personal development educational platform. They had people like Lisa Nichols and Michael Beckwith and Melissa Pierce and Jen Quick and many other incredible transformational speakers. And I got hooked on that. I got hooked, and what I had realized was that I didn't learn any of that in school. I didn't learn any of that from my parents. I didn't learn how to empower myself, how to enrich myself, how to learn, how to grow. I realized that I had zero emotional intelligence, that I was numb when it came to emotions. I had not been taught that. I had been taught to shut my system down and to take it like a man, okay? Right. And the men don't cry. I had been taught so many limited beliefs. No wonder I was a fucking nutcase. Okay?
Yes, sir.
No wonder I was so destructive. Yeah. So I dove in heavy into the personal development state, into taking every course that I could afford, into going to every conference and every event that I could go to. Okay? But as I started seeing that, as I started evolving and changing and growing and learning powerful practical practices, okay, I realized that if I develop a series of powerful practical practices on a daily basis, and I tend to my 5 pillars, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial, okay, I can jump out from a state of survival, enter a present state, and operate from a state of flow. Okay? And it's something very easy to do with practice, with dedication, and with commitment. Okay? So I started perfecting that. You know, if you interview Robin Sharma, he has a 5 a.m. club. If you interview Jim Quick, he has the mindset, you know. So everybody has their 5 rituals. I call them 5 pillars, okay? 5 pillars: physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and financial. And I tend to them every day. And that gives me, first of all, it rises my endorphins. It gives me clarity to be able to be completely present here with Bikram, to be able to have an intelligent conversation, to have clarity, not only clarity for this conversation, but clarity of where I'm going and how I'm going to get there.
Exactly.
Everything I didn't have before. Okay. So that happened to me during this process in the course of the last 13 years. And I was able to modify and hack my body, my brain, my soul, my body, and my spirit to be able to operate on this state on a continuous basis, and to be able to feel the energy of the universe that I need to come through me and for me in order to empower me. Okay, instead of being clouded by all the negative messages and all the negative rates of energy that we get, you know, through social media, through the news, through TV, through whatever, even through family members. Okay, so today I curate my life in a way that I filter all of that in order to be able to operate from a state of clarity.
I swear we are on the same wavelength, because yesterday I was hosting a room in Clubhouse and one of the people asked a question. I can't sleep at night. And then somebody asked to follow up. Well, why not? She says, well, I watch the news 24/7. And I said, look, the news is curated to keep you. If you don't watch news on January 1st, 2021, and you watch news on February 1st, and you don't watch anything in between, there is nothing that changes. There's going to be a car accident. There's going to be a shooting. There's going to be, it's all manufactured to keep you locked in so that they can sell more advertising and they can keep you on the network. Yeah. It's not meant to make you a better person. It's meant to keep you in your primitive brain and not at your higher state, which is the front of your brain, your prefrontal cortex. And I say, you got to curate your Instagram. You got to curate your Clubhouse. You got to curate your Facebook. You got to curate who you have in your inbox. Right? Is it all consumption, or is it some good messages from people like Robin Sharma or Jim Quick or Tom Bailu or, you know, Sharon, my mentor, or Bedros Koulian? Like, who is curating your life? Is it somebody else because you're asleep, or is it you because you're waking up to the possibilities? And most people, they're asleep. They let other people curate them, and they don't even know that that's happening because they got a degree and they think that they're intelligent, but they're just doing what the system built them to do.
They become hypnotized. They have been hypnotized into a belief system that is anti-productive.
Yes, sir.
And that system puts you in a state of survival. You don't know how to operate. Okay, you fight or freeze. You know, you don't even fly anymore. You don't even flee anymore. Okay, you're numb. You're numb. You're unconscious. Okay, you are a walking zombie, and you're right. I mean, I do that on a continuous basis. I work on myself on a continuous basis. I have a series of practical practices, powerful practical practices that I curate every single day. From
what are those?
You know, first thing in the morning when I wake up, I exercise. You know, weight lift. You know. Then I go for a walk, minimum 21 minutes exposure to the sunlight so I can be radiated, so I can have, so my melatonin can be balanced, okay? Then I meditate perfectly outside and exposure to the sun. Then I come in and write my gratitude list. Then I come in and do my journaling list. Then I come in, then I come in and write my goals for the day, for the week, and for the year. And then I read for 10 to 15 minutes every single day, 7 days a week. 365. Those are non-negotiable. And then at night before I go to bed, I write my gratitude list and I pray again. And that's it. And I am fulfilled. I am complete. Okay. I operate from a full cup, not from an empty cup. I'm not starving for anything. I am prepared to give. Okay. What I have realized though, going back to the personal development space, that when I went to many of these events, okay, the majority of the population at those events did not look like me. There were not brown-skinned people like me in those events, not on the audience and not on the stage. Right. And I realized that there's a need for that in my culture. So today I am committed to identifying, educating, and empowering personal development leaders to come back into my community. So I'm able to empower 100 million people by December 31st, 2028, because personal development has transformed my life, has changed my mind, has changed my mindset, and has given my son, okay, an opportunity at a better life than he ever imagined possible, okay? And I have broken the dysfunctional cycles of behaviors, the generational curses, the limited beliefs, and everything that held my parents, my grandparents, great-grandparents, and many of my siblings back from seeing the best version of themselves.
You know, we have so much to talk about. And I know that you have a pressing appointment that started a few minutes ago. And so for respect to you on time, there's so much wisdom in what you shared, but there's the Robin Sharma 5 a.m. club. There's Hal Elrod, the Miracle Morning. You know, I learned the 4 F-bomb: fitness, faith, finance, and family, AKA relationships. And if you get those 4 down, you will get the 5th one, which is fulfillment.
Right.
Right. And it's a daily practice. And everybody, you know, the thing that I want to get out to the world is that Instagram, Instacart, Insta dating, Insta this, Insta that, Insta coffee, Insta hot with your microwave, right? Like I make coffee, it takes me 7 minutes in the morning. It's pressed, it's got butter, it's heated up. Like people are like, you have a system for how you make coffee? Like you don't just put it in a pot? And I said, no, I put a lot of love and I put a lot of attention on everything I do. I research the oils that go in it, the butter that goes in it, the cinnamon, the collagen, right? All of it's curated, because this cup of coffee, when I drink it, it feels so good in my body. Like I can't tell you, Peter, I love coffee drinking because I put so much of my own personal love into it that I want to drink coffee at nighttime before I go to bed, because it's like me pouring into everything that I do. And you said it perfectly. I feel full and I can give back to others, because every day you're outside, you're with nature, which is what our bodies need. Every day you're building yourself up. The most important appointment we can ever keep is the appointment we make with ourselves. But people don't even keep their own appointment. You can't even, people like, I'm going to lose weight this year. No, you're not. Why? How do you know that? Why would you say that? Because you haven't done it for 10 years, which means you've never kept an appointment to yourself. And if you can't keep an appointment to yourself, who else do you not keep appointments to? Then you wonder why relationships fall apart. Yeah. But we all operate from the broken child that we came from. And until you fix the broken kid, and for me, it's been a 5-year journey after I got out of jail. It's been 5 years. I went sober, then I became a dry drunk, then I started drinking, then I started drinking heavily, then I stopped. And my aunt said to me the other day, she says, oh, Vikram's in one of his stages of not drinking again. Isn't that cute? And I was like, fuck that shit. Like, no, I am not in a stage in my life where I'm going to go back. And to the people that listen, look, you're going to fall, but you're going to get up. And if you do what Peter says, you read, you do journaling, gratitudes, right? You don't have to journal, just write down what you're grateful for.
And I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to encourage your audience to do journaling. Journaling is one of the most powerful tools that we can have, because you know what, Vikram, what we do, we take this stuff that we have in our head, we put it out into paper, and we either give it power or take its power away. One or the other. It's very simple. It's a clearing of the mind. It's a process of taking everything that you have and put it in there, you know? And
so how do you journal, Peter? Because I go on and off. I'll do the goals, the gratitude, the reading. I'll do the workouts. I'll do the outside activity. The last few days, I haven't been going outside as much because I've been really focused on, you know, meeting great people like you and getting your message out there, because we all need to hear it. How do you start? And I know these are really simple things. People like, you're going to talk to this guy who's done so much about how to journal in a morning routine. Yeah, that's because that's what changed your fucking life. It's like, stop overcomplicating shit, people. So how do you journal, Peter?
You know, there's a lot of times that I don't have anything to journal about, but I'll start with a simple sentence. Well, today's been a good day. And you know what? When you start, it flows.
Yeah.
So the key is to start, and you realize, like for me, just to put, well, it's been a good day. And then sudden, my pencil starts flowing and starts writing. I can tell you, I journal every single day, minimum 3 pages, every single day. Okay.
You guys, he's holding up 3 or 4 of the little composition books that you can buy on Amazon for like 100 of them for like $20.
Exactly. I go to Office Depot and I buy a box, okay, twice a year, okay? And I have a closet full of them, okay? I have every single one of them. I've been doing this for 12 years. You know what? At the beginning, it was hard. And sometimes, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, sometimes I don't feel like doing my rituals.
Oh my God, no, Peter, don't say that. You're a hero. You don't feel like doing things once in a while? I tell you, I don't feel like going to the gym ever. I hate the gym. I hate it.
Yeah.
But I go.
But guess what? I remember how good my life is. I remember how things have changed. I remember how I have shifted. I look at where I am today, okay? And all I have to do is think about where I came from.
Yeah, baby.
That motivates me immediately to get back and doing my rituals, okay? My rituals is a savings account that I deposit in every single day. And whenever I need something, I can tap to it and it's there.
And you guys, listen to this part again. Hit rewind, go back. His rituals are his savings account. He didn't talk about his bank account at Wells Fargo or wherever it's at. He talked about his rituals being his the rituals is what saves his account every day from falling back into that dry drunk, into that shitty little boy, into the person who says, I'm a victim, and fucks up everything. The savings account is not the financial account, which you've been taught to believe is the only account. It's the daily disciplines and habits. It's not eating the shitty food. It's not going out to the bar at night and drinking. It's not waking up hungover. It's not having sex with that super attractive person just for the sake of fucking them, right? Like, you got to do things. And if you do things, right, I'm not saying don't go out and have sex with the super hot person. I'm saying do it with integrity. Have a ritual where you're going to say, okay, if I'm going to do these things, what else am I doing to keep my energy high? And are you being honest? Are you living in integrity? Because if you don't have a ritual, everything that's around you is a new shiny object to fuck your life up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, this has been an incredible conversation, Bikram, and thank you for the opportunity. And I say this with a lot of humility. You know, when I look at my life today, I know I come a long ways.
Absolutely.
But if I can do it, anybody can do it. If this broken kid from, you know, with 6 brothers and 6 sisters, a mom and a dad, living in a 2-bedroom, less than 900 square feet home in San Antonio, Texas, that when picking crops on, you know, on the summers, instead of going on a summer vacation, picking apples or oranges instead of going to Disneyland, can do it. You can do it too.
Peter, you're an inspiration to me. You're an inspiration to, I'm sure, millions and millions of people. And I'm sure you're going to hit your goal of inspiring 100 people in your community. I'd love to be a part of that any way possible, because that's the goal in life, is to use your personal story to help empower other people. And in the process of empowering other people, you actually empower yourself, because a teacher learns more than the student every time. People, get out and share so you can learn. Peter, where do people find you at?
I'm everywhere in social media. Of course, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Peter O Estevez, or my podcast at Coming Clean Podcast. We're everywhere. We're on Pinterest, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn. Everywhere you can find us.
You guys, that's Peter O Estevez. And one more time, the audio broke up a little bit. Where's the podcast at?
Coming Clean Podcast, at Coming Clean Podcast. And that's on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, our website for the podcast is www.comingcleanpodcast.com. And we have an incredible plethora of thought leaders from across the world that have been guests on our podcast. People like Robin Sharma, people like Dean Graziosi, people like Dr. John DeMartini, people like Natasha Grano, people like John Ashraf, okay, Tim Story, and I can go on and on and on. Dr. Edith Eger, you know, Christina Lakiani from Mind Valley, and many, many other incredible thought leaders. They had graced us with their presence their experiences. You know, I shift the podcast, and this is a very important point, at a very pivotal point in my life. Okay, my podcast started with the message of recovery, addiction, recovery, and mental health. Okay, and then I looked at myself one day, and I looked at the state of the world, and I was talking about my story, and I was talking about recovery. When there's Corona going on, when people are confined to their homes, where people are losing their jobs, where businesses are shutting down. So I made a decision that I am more than recovery. I am more than a recovered alcoholic. I am whole and complete, and I have a responsibility to empower, okay, and to help others transition into a better state of being. And that's the reason I changed the format of the podcast, to bring together thought leaders from across the world that can inspire for us to aspire to become better.
You guys, and there's just so much that we can go into. There's so much that Peter has to offer. And if you get the opportunity, well, you have the opportunity, because he's on Clubhouse, he's on Instagram, he's in the rooms that you never had access to before. And now that the rise has changed, right? The world has changed. I'm reading a shirt that says I'm on the rise. Now that the world is completely changed, you have access to people. Like, I would have never met Peter if it wasn't for the technology that we have available. And Peter, I just want to thank you, because I'm like fired up. I'm like jumping up and down over here. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's go. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking time out of your day to share your existence with us, because you shared so many nuggets. And the thing that I love about you is that you made them simple, palatable, and you kept them to the basics, because a lot of people come on and I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying, and I know what you're talking about. And I'm like, whew, I can't put that out to my audience. We need simple, tactical. This is what works for a guy who's made a lot of stupid decisions and a lot of great decisions. He's been on the top, he's been on the bottom. He figured out what rituals he needed to do, lift some weights, do some gratitudes, do some journaling, do some meditation, get outside, do it again at night. It's simple. And you do that over and over and over and over again. And all of a sudden you become an overnight success, but it's taken you what? 13 years to keep that success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I often say that, I became an overnight success. It just took me 13 years or 30 years, or however number of years. Right.
I love it.
Because, there's no bullet train to transformation. No. It's a process. We have to peel and construct and reconstruct everything that we have been made believe. Okay.
Yes.
Somebody fed us our story and we bought it. Now we need to create our own.
Oh, we're going to end on that note, Peter. Thank you so much. Everybody, please go follow Peter. Please give this podcast a like, a subscribe, drop a comment, because he will be reading them and it will fire him up and fuel him up to hit his goal of 2028 of helping 100 million people that need to be fired up too. Peter, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.